All right, what I've got here is just some bolts that I'm not gonna be using on the car. It's just spare stuff. So anyway, I'm taking the square nuts and I'm running them on here, and it gives me something to hold on to, and I'm gonna take them over to the bench grinder. I got a wire wheel in there. Now I'm gonna clean the CAD coating off of this so it welds better. These square nuts have a rounded side and then they have a flat side, and the flat side goes down, you know, so I'm going to clean off the flat side and clean off all four sides, and then I can bring them out and bolt them on to the inner fenders and then weld them up. So get started. So I run the bolt on, you know, to where the bolt's kind of in a little bit on the flat part, so I can get in here and wire it on the bottom. And then when I go to do the sides, I stick it on there and then I turn it counterclockwise. That way it screws it further onto the nut. If you got your bolt way out here and you go to wire wheel it, it might not get a lot of the CAD off around where the bolt is. OCD, I guess. All right, I'm gonna get started on the cleanup of this stuff here. Gotta clean the rust off anyway. All right, so I ground off that square nut from the factory that was on there that had the broke off bolt in it. So the flanges on the center fender, I mean, you can see they're all tweaked out in a lot of places. This is bent over, this is kind of tweaked a little bit, just kind of all over. So I'm going to go through here and hammer and dolly the flange all the way around and try to get it all square. And then I'm going to go in here and grind off these factory spot welded on little tabs here. Just basically grinding that hump out of that, getting it flat. You don't have to grind it off of there. But anyway, that'll allow the square nut to set flat on there. But I got some spots here where the metal's kind of pushed up on one side, there and there, so I'm gonna have to hammer and dolly all that, probably grind that down a little bit, just to smooth it off. But any grinding that I'm gonna do, hopefully I will do on the outside of the inner fender, because this will end up getting bed linered, you know, for rocks and that kind of stuff, debris off the tires. So, you know, if you do kind of get into something with your sanding disc that's pretty harsh, like that's a 36 grit, it won't be that bad to hide with the Raptor liner right behind it. There's a whole bunch of staples in here. You can see them all. So what I usually do is I just go in here and I grind the folded over part, I just grind them off, and then I'll take a flat blade screwdriver on this side and a pair of pliers, you know, pull it out. It usually pulls one side out and then you have to get the pliers and pull it off. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's just part of the prep of the restoration anyway. It's not necessarily has anything to do with me welding the square nuts to this stuff. This is just like the restoration prep side of it before they get, you know, restored, cleaned up to metal and primed and then sanded and painted. So I guess I'll get to it. Battery's about dead in the GoPro. I got 5% left, I think. Ooh, 2%. Man. Finger slipped. Alright, I'm going to open these holes up so they'll take a 5/16 bolt through them so I can weld the square nut on the back side. So what I'm using is an impact, a 1/4 inch impact, and I've got a step bit, but it's the one that has a lot of the steps instead of the one that's like this. So this one has more stuff on it. So I'm going to enlarge these until a 5/16 bolt fits through there just a little bit loosely. Alright guys, so the reason that I'm welding the nuts in this way, when I did my hardtop, I welded the square nuts onto the inner fender just by itself. So when I went to assemble the car, I had a few of them on each side that just wasn't quite lining up because them factory really coarse style threads, you know, that bolt is actually really thin, but the thread's really wide, so you're taking up less space with a bolt. So anyway, or you're taking up more space with a bolt, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, they were off just a little bit, so I had to go in there with my cone burr or die grinder and carefully go in there and kind of open that edge up a little bit on a few of them. So that's how I learned that lesson. So I've got the square nuts all square where they're, you know, straight up and down, except this one right here. Yep, there we go. Anyway, I've got this one a little bit kind of crooked, and that's because I have a better angle of welding two sides. So I'm going to tack in two sides of it, and then I'm going to blow it all apart and then go back and finish welding the other sides of it and make sure it's on good. But I do recommend you to bolt that inner fender to that fender because you might be off on a few of them just a little bitty bit. So mock-up is key. I think I'd know that by now. All right, so I got a loose buff here on my bench grinder, which is very high RPM, which you're not supposed to polish, you know, stainless trim and stuff with a high RPM bench grinder, but it's all I have. I'm just using green rouge, and I'm not sanding these bolts or anything. I am just polishing them, and they're turning out pretty slick. They need to be wiped off. They've got, there we go. So they look pretty much chrome, other than the very center, but anyway, some of those, you know, these longer ones I can hold on to, but these short ones right here are kind of hard to hold on to. So I'm using one of these. I found this at Atwood's, and they had a whole bunch of them, different sizes. So I got a 1/4 20, 5/16 18, and 3/8 by 16. Those, that way you can screw the bolt into there, and then you've got this end you can hold on to buff. So works kind of nice. Anyway, I buffed all the hardware, well, most of it, not all of it, but I buffed enough of it to mock up the fender to give you all a visual here. All right, so I welded up the screw holes that were in here, but then there's like a factory size hole right there. No telling what it's for. It's nothing I need. So I'm gonna go ahead and weld it up, but instead of trying to just fill it up with weld and warping the crap out of it, I'm going to use a nail. These are steel nails. I got them in a box at Lowe's, but they're about the same gauge head, thickness of the head as the metal. So I'm going to use this multi-step bit here, and I'm going to step bit it from this side that way, and I'm going to try to catch it before I go all the way through, where it pretty much goes 3/4 of the way through the sheet metal, and this will kind of set in there just right, and then I'll completely weld the other side of it, and then I can grind both sides and it'll be even. So it's kind of a neat way to plug holes without, you know, trying to fill all that with weld and, you know, warping it and shrinking it all up. You got something to hold on to hold in there and weld it up. Alright, so I can't get the nail to go through on this side, but when I push it up from the back side, it's just about to the top. I'm not trying to hold it free floating there, it won't push through. So now I can go ahead and tack that, put a pretty good tack on one side, and I'll weld some more on them square nuts and then come back and weld the other side. Kind of take my time with it so I don't warp it all to hell. Alright, I got one inner fender done. I put some of the bolts in just to mock it up, just to kind of show you the difference. I really like that button head bolt on there without a washer. It's just nice and clean looking. It's smooth. Anyway, these button head Allen bolts are a lot thinner than the factory bolts, so especially these, so they won't interfere with the side of the hood or anything. I blasted the jam with my blaster just to kind of, you know, effect, I guess you'd say. And little button heads there, and then button heads and everything else. So I think it looks pretty good. And then this is stock. This is stock hardware that I just laid in here. You know, it has the regular style bolts. Here's the core support bolts too. And then it has these little goofy screws. I've always called them gnarly screws because the threads are gnarly. Anyway, I just think that is a drastic improvement, and that is going to add a little bit of detail. When that green paint's on there, them shiny stainless bolts are going to pop, man. It's going to look wonderful. So I'm pretty excited. All right, there is that. That'll be what holds the bolts the fender down to this. I forgot to put that on there for the visual experience. I love it, man. It's going to look really nice. So it's about, I would say probably about 6:30 p.m. I've already went in and ate, and then I come back out and finished up the grinding that I was doing. I am pretty much done. I was going to go ahead and work for a little bit longer, but my finger's throbbing because I took off several layers of skin. So finger hurts pretty bad, and I got heartburn from eating jalapenos. So I think I'm done. So another day done. Well, I didn't get near as far as I wanted to in a week's worth of work. Of course, I lost all day yesterday, so I've still got tomorrow. I'm going to work all day tomorrow on it and hopefully get, I don't think I'm going to get it all done. That driver's side fender is going to take a lot more work, but hopefully, let's just say by the end of the weekend or Monday night, maybe that stuff will be, maybe the front clip will be done. Thanks for watching.